Welcome to the Pre-Pod. I'm here with Erin Clare Jones, Human Design Guide. Hi, Erin.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining today. I'm super honored to have you here. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm a human design guide. I live in upstate New York and I've been working with human design for about 8 years now. I discovered it in 2015 and it's been an amazing, unpredictable journey bringing it out into the world. But I feel so lucky to be doing what I do. I think it's an amazing system and I feel it's amazing to see the world be as excited about it as I am.
Absolutely. When I first heard about human design, I didn't realize how there is so much you can learn about from it. It also helped me in the workplace and relationships. So let's dive in a bit. What is human design?
So, human design is a system based on your time, date, and place of birth that reveals your energetic blueprint and how you're uniquely wired to thrive. And what I mean by that is how you're wired to make decisions, work within teams, cultivate relationships, partner, parent, all the things. Like you can really think of it as a system that gives you kind of your own roadmap. It's not predictive in any way. It's not going to tell you that in 5 years this will happen or this will happen in 10 years. It more helps you understand how to kind of like navigate, basically how to like leverage you, how to leverage your uniqueness and how to kind of flow with who you are rather than kind of resist it or flow against it.
I love that. And it's funny that you say that because before I found out I was a manifester, I was living as a generator.
Yeah. So many of us are. Yeah.
I would love for you to share about each type.
Each type. So
Yes.
in human design, there are 5 different types. There's a lot more underneath this, but this is kind of the first distinction. It's a really important one. And if you have not yet looked up your design, you can go to humandesignblueprint.com and look yours up. So there are manifesting generators, generators, projectors, manifestors, and reflectors. So manifesting generators and generators kind of collectively are like the doers, the builders, the creators, the ones that have like such amazing creative energy and power to kind of bring ideas to life, whether it's their own idea or someone else's. So important for both of these types to be so lit up by what they're doing. One of their biggest lessons is around prioritizing their own excitement, their own satisfaction, and seeing that not as a selfish choice, but actually as the thing that will allow them to kind of have the most positive, brightest impact in the world. And they also both have a lot of lessons to learn around boundaries because they have such natural vitality and energy. People can really want to like take advantage of it. And so their work is to kind of really have strong boundaries, say yes to what lights them up and like no to the rest, within bounds, but as much as possible. Manifesting generators specifically are often quite multi-passionate. They might like moving between different things, having every day look a little bit different. They're really good at making things happen fast, but not handling every single step along the way. So I would remind the manifesting generators listening to not expect others to keep up with you or do as much as you. And then generators bring this really beautiful, kind of steadfast, committed, masterful energy in terms of bringing ideas to life. So they can actually be such amazing collaborators. The last piece that I would share about those types is that neither of them are meant to chase after things. They're both very naturally magnetic, and they're kind of actually meant to wait for things to show up in their world and light them up before they go after something. Is that all clear?
Yes.
Yeah. So then we've got projectors. Projectors are leaders, guides, advisors, teachers, not here to do all the doing. So much of being a projector is understanding that your energy is meant to ebb and flow. And so instead of doing all day long, it's really kind of honoring the natural ebbs and flows and knowing that your gift is like how intuitively and insightfully you see the world and not like how much you can do and how hard you can work. Projectors tend to be very innately wise about people. And so they can make really good therapists, coaches, teachers, CEOs, managers, like where they're really in a role of guiding and leading others, often not by telling them what to do, but by like asking the right questions. And projectors tend to love systems like human design, like anything that they can like sink their teeth into that really kind of deepens their understanding of how people work. And their strategy is about waiting to be recognized and invited in. So again, not chasing after anything, kind of waiting for a sense of recognition and invitation before engaging. It's not passive. It really is a tool to just protect your energy and make sure you're only guiding those who are really ready for it and really value your insight. Then we've got manifestors like you. And so manifestors are here to be the initiators and the innovators, really good at kind of getting things started and getting the ball rolling. Not always going to do all the doing themselves. Like often like getting things off the ground is where they kind of bring so much value. And you might also find that your energy operates in kind of creative bursts where you might have like a couple days, a couple weeks, a couple hours where you can make a lot happen. And then you might need to kind of pull back and rest. You're not meant to do. And I would say for you, taking that rest is so important because it's often in those restful periods that like the next idea or inspiration will come through. One big reminder for you as a manifestor is that like you're kind of here to see the future and see where things are going before like others do. And so just really trusting yourself enough to kind of initiate and be the first and act on your ideas, even if you haven't seen them done before. And your strategy in human design is about initiating. You're not here to wait for anything to come to you. Like if you feel inspired to make something happen, like there's a little bit of nuance depending on other aspects of your design. You're really here to act on that urge. How does that all feel to you? Do you feel like you're in alignment with that? Does that feel far from the way that you're showing up?
Yeah, I feel like that is true alignment for me because I find that I'm so much more like inspired and energetic after I've had that rest period. Kind of like take time.
Yeah.
And yeah, I know for me when I tried the generator life, it was so
I tried it too. Yeah.
I can't keep up. Which actually I didn't even ask. Which one are you?
I'm a projector.
Okay.
Yeah. 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 And I think that it's a good reminder that like a lot of us have spent a lot of our lives trying to be something that we're not. And for every type, like generators have been trying to be manifestors, projectors trying to be generators. Like it's all over the place. But like, I think human design reconnects us to like, oh yeah, like that is how I work best. And I find often when I share people's human design with them, like they recognize like how they showed up when they were young. They're like, wow, when I was like 5 and 6, I was like owning this, and then I just got conditioned out of it and like tried to be another thing. So I think it really, more than anything else, human design just gives us permission to be who we are, and gives us tools to actually step into it. The final type is a reflector. We kind of call these people like it's 1% of the population. So they're quite rare. And we kind of call these people like our collective mirrors because they're incredibly sensitive to their physical space. And so they're always taking in and magnifying the energy that they're around. And so you really get a good sense of how a reflector or how a company is doing or a team or a family just by how that reflector is showing up. And so I would say, so importantly for them, they must be kind of ruthless curators of the people and places they're spending time with and in. They also have a gift of fluidity, meaning that they might have some periods in the month where they feel like a manifestor like you or a projector like me or a generator or a manifesting generator. And their job is not to like lock into one way of being and just try to be consistent, but honor whatever feels like them that day. And I mean that on like the micro and macro level. Like on the micro level, it's more like, wow, I was like so on fire last week and now I really need to like rest this week. On the macro level, it might be like, wow, I like loved being an artist and being an entrepreneur. Now I'm feeling really drawn to doing another thing. Like it's just like really honoring kind of where you're being drawn and knowing that you have the capacity to express yourself in so many different ways. And we call these this type of evaluators because they just see and sense things that so many people don't. And so it's really useful for them to kind of be in spaces where it feels like their perspective is like really recognized and valued and appreciated and invited in. And the last piece that I would share is that, their strategy and also what we call their inner authority, how they make decisions, is basically around patience. Like they're not really meant to jump into things. Like we actually recommend that they give themselves like a full 28 to 30 days before they make a big decision, which I honor is not always feasible. But I think most important here is that they're making decisions like at their own pace and in their own timing.
Wow.
So those are the types. Yeah.
That's really cool. And it kind of sounds like a reflector is almost like a little bit of everybody in their own sense.
I mean, it's so interesting because when you look at a human design chart, you're going to see areas that you're really consistent, like kind of the things that make you you, and then areas where you're really fluid and flexible and taking an energy from other people. On a reflector chart, they're basically like fluid and flexible in most every possible way. And so they're taking a lot of energy. And so basically it like gives them this capacity to express themselves in a multitude of ways, like they can like really tap into it all. And so I find with reflectors in particular, like when they're trying to be super consistent, like this is who I am and I'm sticking with it, it can just feel like really rigid and confining because that's so inauthentic for them. But when they really just like go with the flow and like really like start to kind of play with all these parts of themselves, like it can be so fun and so full of surprise and magic. And it's just like a really good reminder of like how hard things can be when we try to be a thing that we're not, and how magical things can be when we actually just like own who we are. And I think human design reminds us that we all need each other, like because we are all so different, like we all like need each other in partnership and in teams and in friendship, because like we all just bring such different necessary pieces to the table.
Absolutely. Yeah. I also love the fact with our human design, you can know you're out of alignment by, like, for me, apparently, if I'm angry, I know that I'm not in alignment. But if I feel peace, I'm aligned. And it's cool that it tells you that because you can kind of be aware of where you are too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll say when I discovered my human design, I was like living opposite every part of it. And so, like, I always say human design is like equal parts relieving and confronting. There's often a piece where it's like, oh my God, I feel so much permission to be who I am. And then, like, another piece that might be like, ooh, I have not been doing that. And so, like, it takes, and maybe you're living it and it's just affirmation. For me, that was not the case. I was not living it. But yes, what you're sharing about is that every type will have a signal that reveals when they're on or off track. And they're just these like really beautiful checkpoints to be like, oh, I'm in alignment. I'm going to just keep walking this path. Or like, wow, this isn't feeling right. I've got to check in. So for manifestors to be in alignment is to feel peaceful, like feeling free to do things as you please, when you please, like in your own flow. To be off track is to feel angry, often to feel kind of disempowered, unable to be in your own flow, confined in a way that feels unnatural. For projectors to be on track is to feel success, which can manifest, of course, as material success. But more importantly, it's like I feel recognized and appreciated and valued for who I am in my work and in my intimate relationships. To be off track is bitter, which is just like rooted in a lack of recognition, a lack of appreciation. So I know when bitterness shows up for me, I'm like, okay, I've got to like reevaluate how I'm showing up here and whether this is correct for me. Generators and manifesting generators feel in alignment when they feel satisfied, when they kind of drop into bed, like really fulfilled by the way that they've used their energy. To be off track is frustrated, kind of resentful and dissatisfied in the way that they're using their energy. And for reflectors to be on track is surprise, again, when they kind of surrender to that magical flow. And it's just like, what wants to come through me today? Like, I'm so open to that. And to be off track is disappointment. Often kind of like in spaces that don't feel good, around people that don't feel good, or trying to put themselves in a box that feels inauthentic.
Oh, I think for each one, I was thinking of a certain friend or a person that I work with, and it's so true.
Yeah, it's so simple. And again, it doesn't mean that like you can't have peace in your life as a generator or anything. Like it's like we all have access to all these things. Like they're just really beautiful. Like, but I feel like frustration is not really a thing for me. Bitterness is totally a thing. And so it is just kind of this like root feeling that is just a good reminder of like on or off track. But I really encourage people to kind of experiment with like how it feels in their life, because success for me might feel like a different kind of success for someone else.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask you, and this kind of takes us back a little bit, but what are some ways you recognized that you were experiencing a lack of alignment prior to your introduction of human design? And how are you living entirely in your truth today as a result of the work you've done in human design?
Yeah, I think it's a journey. I can't say like I am living in my design every day. I am always learning. It's lifelong. I think in terms of the ways I was living off track. And again, it's not like I don't look at these things like, Erin, you were doing anything wrong. It was just like,
No.
yeah, it was more just like I look and I'm like, when I discovered human design, I was like, that's why this isn't working, like, and so I'm a projector. I'm not really here to be this like super consistent hustler or doer. And I lived in New York City at the time. Like I was in a really entrepreneurial community. I was working at startups and I was like, I'm just gonna do. And honestly, like I would get hired at a startup, like really like just be amazing for like maybe 3 months, like just like on fire. And then I would just burn out, and then I would just kind of like dwindle. And so like it just wasn't sustainable for me. And so I think part of where I was living off track was that I was trying really hard to be a doer, and I wasn't trusting that like my intelligence about people could actually be a career. Like I think in every job I was in, it was always like they put me in front of people because they were just like, just interact with them. Like you just, and I love interacting with people. I love understanding them. I love asking them questions. So like that was always felt so natural. I didn't know it could be a career. And that's all I do now, And so that was a big lesson. And also knowing that rest is okay, honoring the ebbs and flows of my energy is okay. I think also a big part of my design as a projector was about waiting to be invited in and really kind of investing my energy in those who saw me. And I mean that like work wise, 100%, like working with those who value my perspective, but also friendship wise, like really like with people that really deeply saw me. And like I learned that not everyone who I want to see me, like want to, like I want them to see me and they don't always see me, So like I think I realized that I was initiating and chasing after and not waiting to be invited. And then another big area that I was living out of alignment is that we all have different ways of making decisions. And I, like you, are meant to take our time. We're not really meant to be super spontaneous. Like just we're meant to feel into things and give it a beat, a day or two. I had been so spontaneous in the past and so regretful. And so like I think that I was also trying to make decisions and reach clarity much faster than was natural. So I was living out of alignment in basically all those areas and probably a bajillion others. I think that like where I feel like I'm living in alignment now, and again, it's a journey. I think knowing my human design allows me to kind of move out of resistance more quickly when it comes. One is I feel like I know my role. Like I no longer am trying to do everything on my own. I have a generator business partner who's my husband, and like thank God for him. Like we've really had to like dial in on like where does Erin offer the most value in the business, which is like content and working with people, and like really giving myself permission to just do that and not try to be like operations and strategy and all these things that just didn't feel like me, So one, I think a big one was allowing and support. I think also that strategy of being invited in, like I don't like pitch, I don't chase after, I don't like, I have a lot of fake accounts on Instagram that are like pitching people and my like pretending to be me. I'm like, I would just never do that, like, so, and it's not to say it's like the wrong thing. It's just not right for me. I know that my job in the business is to make myself visible and share myself with the world in the broadest possible way so that the right invitations can come in, so that's been a big piece. And then I think, I take my time, I feel into things, but honestly, I feel like where I feel most aligned is that I just feel like I'm just myself, and I feel like I get to be successful just being myself. And I think that I've seen a lot of amazing things manifest in my life since aligning with my design. And I can't be like, this all happened because of it. I don't know, but human design came into my life, obviously my partner, my home, just like a lot of magic has really, the business, just like a lot of things, just like everything just feels very aligned, in a way where I don't know where I'll be in 5 years, but I know what I'm doing right now is perfect. And so like, I just have to like it. And that's what I love. It's like, I can't be overly strategic about where it's going, but I can just like, all I can do is feel aligned in the moment and just like keep staying connected to that.
I love that. And that gave such a beautiful insight of you. So thank you for that.
Oh yeah, of course.
Um, I want to ask you regarding human design, what is something that you wish more people knew about human design? Or what do you think people get wrong about human design?
I think two things. One is that like, and honestly, like all things, like, when you're learning human design, it's filtered through the lens of the person that you're learning from, and so like, it's just their life, their perspective inevitably is going to play a role. So I've had a lot of clients come to me and say like, oh, like, this person told me that like, because I'm a projector, I can't like, I don't know, I can't be this, or I can't have kids, just random stuff, or like, I know I've literally heard that when I'm like, what? Or like, as a generator, like, I can't be a coach, or as a man, whatever it is, like, they're so random. And I think that like human design is not here to tell us what we can't do. I believe that we all can do anything in the world that we want. I think human design helps us know how we can do it best, and I think that like I want people to remember that like it's meant to be a system that empowers you and does not disempower you. So if there's any part of you that feels like, wow, this feels really disempowering and limiting, like I would just throw it away, but it's also often filtered through a lens that isn't very useful. So that's the first piece. The second piece that I would say is that like more information is not better. I think that often there's like a real obsession of like, but what is this gate and what is this line? And like, I get it. I get it because I am that person. I have gone so deep into the system and will continue to. And I think that like sometimes when we just like get obsessed with like memorizing every single detail, we're so much more in our heads than we actually are living our design. Like our design is meant to be experimented with, embodied, and not memorized, And so like I have sat with people that like they want to learn every detail, but like the most basic stuff they're not actually living, And so like they're not going to experience the benefits of all the other things. So everyone has their own journey with it, but I just want to remind people that like it can feel overwhelming because there's so much information, but often the simplest information is the most useful. So I would start with that, like experiment with like 2 or 3 and then take it more when you want. Like as we're talking about the blueprint, like I create these big books and resources for people about their design, but like it's not because you're meant to integrate it all at once. It's because it's meant to be a thing that you keep returning to for years and just seeing kind of what parts are most relevant to where you are in the moment. So you can kind of really live that.
I'm actually thankful that you said that because when I first received my blueprint, I was like, whoa, I have to learn a lot about myself.
Yeah.
And I thought in one shot, but as I've been kind of like I told you before this, I got this in July. It was a birthday gift to myself.
Oh, yeah.
And I've been just each kind of like month just giving myself little pieces. And
You're doing it perfectly. Yeah.
and thank you for saying that because I'm like, I'm so far behind with my
And you have like I added a welcome. I added like a letter at the beginning, which I don't believe that I think you have an older version, but like I'm now really explicit at the beginning of like one piece at a time. You know what I mean? Open to one page. Like I think that I give people a lot so they have it, but not because I need to integrate it all at once. So I'm so glad you're doing that intuitively. Like I think that's the best way to work with the system.
Thank you so much. So my next question for you, I have two actually. One is, how can human design help our listeners give themselves permission to be their most authentic selves?
Yeah, I think that like my experience with human design is that it feels really familiar. Like it's like when I sit with people, it's not like I'm actually giving them all this like strange language where they're just like, whoa, what is that? They're just like, yep, totally. Uh-huh. I know that. Yep. Uh-huh. Like I just think that like so often I'm just giving them a language for things they've always felt, but often haven't given themselves permission to step into. And so I think how it can help your listeners is like it's going to give you a beautiful language to how you operate best. And it will give you actually incredibly practical and grounded tools to step into it. The magic of human design is that it doesn't just like inundate us with information. It gives us a lot of tools to actually work with the information. And so I think it will just give you a lot of tools that are really supportive for your own alignment, whether it's in your business or in a relationship or just in life. And I think one other piece that I would share is that like human design is such a powerful tool for individual alignment. It's also such a powerful tool for relationships because you start to understand like, wow, my partner is really different than me. And so is my kid. And so is my colleague. And I've been trying to, I want them to be like me, but they're not. Like, I think it just like helps us understand how different we are and how to honor each person's needs and ways of being. So I think that it brings a lot of compassion and understanding into relationships because you start to like be given very specific tools to really honor your differences and not kind of take them personally.
My friend is a generator and I'm a manifestor. We did a collaboration. We realized that I'm like an ebb and flow and she's like a go, go, go.
Yeah.
And it really helped us work better together to understand that. So I really like that you bring that up because you're right. Like it's more so, I feel like you end up feeling like, oh my goodness, I feel like me. Like this is me. So
Totally. Yeah. And it is like, it's so useful in collaborations, like, especially with your design. It's like, if you're brought into a situation and they're like, you got to like, one, I'm going to micromanage you and you've got to be really consistent. You might be like, oh, like you're just like somebody, I forgot to mention this with manifestors, but like they need freedom and autonomy and control. And like, you're not here to be told what to do. You're here to do things like on your own terms and in your own way. And so like to work with people that really honor that is so important.
Absolutely. And it's so true. I think that one of the things my friend and I talked about, who is also a Midwester, um, we talked about how we didn't realize how we like that freedom. And when you don't have that freedom, you feel like claustrophobic in life. Like, don't tell me what to do. I want to do it my way. So I feel like it opened up so much to me. And I'm really grateful for being able to find you, human design, and
Yeah.
all of it. So my last question for you today,
Yeah.
the brief pod is all about calling back your power. And
Okay.
so how can human design help people find their voice and use it more powerfully?
I think that I think it really is a beautiful way to just cultivate self-trust. You know what I mean? To just like cultivate trust in your voice and your way of doing things. Like I just think in life we often get like pretty taken off track and we're just like, oh, like this thing worked for this person. I'm gonna do it like them. And it's not that like it's wrong. It's just like it worked for them. It doesn't mean it'll work for you. And so I think that like it'll kind of reveal what will uniquely work for you. And I think when you walk that path, you'll feel so much more in trust of yourself and so much more powerful because of it. And I love that that's what this podcast is about, because that's like the whole manifestor journey is just like reconnecting to and trusting your innate power, because you're such an innately powerful kind of impactful energy. And there's also a lot of pieces in our design that will speak to like, what is your voice and how do you best express? So there's a lot of nuances there. But I just think that like in general, really cultivate self-trust and a belief, a trust in your path, and like a trust in how you do things so that you aren't kind of questioning and getting in your head about it.
Thank you. That is so beautiful. Everything you have shared is so helpful. And I'd just love for you to share, where can listeners find you?
So I am at Erin Clare Jones on Instagram and I share a lot there. And then, if you want to get your blueprint, which we mentioned briefly, which is like it's now 55 plus pages, kind of written guide to your unique design. It's like a book all about you. And it's really meant to be delivered in like the most practical and empowering way. Is there a discount code that you want to use for it? Is there a word that you want to use?
We can do something with like power.
Power. Okay, let's have the discount code be power.
Okay.
And the you can get that at humandesignblueprint.com. And then I also offer individual sessions, partnership sessions, family sessions, as well as team sessions and monthly workshops. And that is all over at erinclarejones.com.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I will absolutely say the blueprint is worth it.
Oh,
I still read it to this day. I love it. And there's just so much that I dove into. Like, I recommend it.
thank you so much. That means the world.
So lately, I've been having my special guests share a mantra or a quote or something that really speaks to them. And I'd love for you to share yours.
I think that I would just say, like, I trust the path that feels right to me, even if it doesn't make sense to others. Like, I just think the encouragement for people of like, what works for you may not work for others. So extend others the grace that they might not do it like you, and give yourself permission to do it differently.
That is so beautiful. I'm just so honored that you came on to the podcast and joining me today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure.
With that, you are loved, you are worthy, you are cherished, and we are proud of you. Until next time, on the pod. Bye.